I'm Fred McMurray, which means this must be...
Pillars of Franchising. Pillars of Franchising.
Good afternoon and welcome to another episode of Pillars of Franchising. My name is Kristin Selmeczy and we have another great show for you today. We'll be speaking with Mike Ringel, our favorite wealth strategist, and talk about why it's important to channel your inner Stephen Covey by beginning with the end in mind. But first, Karen, let's talk about what's happening on the streets.
Hello. Well, today, how are you today?
I'm good. I can't believe it's Thursday already.
I know. I can't either. So I was kind of excited the past couple of weeks because Franchise Business Review just came out with their annual survey. And I always love that because it's a survey that's really based on feedback of franchise owners. And I think they're the best source, right, for rating surveys.
Yeah, for sure. And, I think I had mentioned before, Ray and I said it on Tuesday. That's why it rings a bell. Ray and I just completed our survey for the Molly Maid organization. And they are really, I met the founder of Franchise Business Review in San Diego at the IFA meeting. And what a great guy. I mean, really, his whole goal is just to make sure that people have a platform to speak about their experience in the franchise industry with their specific brand and tell everybody what they really think about it. And, you can choose to have it be private, or you can share your information, which I really like.
I do too. And I think many times when you're doing one for, your franchisor, people are kind of afraid, right? They're like, okay, do I tell the truth? Can this be tracked to me? And what I like about this, you're right. It can be, you can be anonymous or you can give your name. Yeah. And I love it because they're really taking a look at franchisee satisfaction, performance results. And I like it that they're really taking a look at the training, leadership, core values. And what I love is it's lifestyle. Do they like what they're doing? Because we all know that, when people are looking for a franchise, those are key parts because this is your life.
Sure. And often we're giving up very frequently really good paying corporate jobs that are for the most part stable, but we've just decided that it's time, right? And so the ability to have something that makes you feel good about what you're doing at the same time that you're obviously growing and replacing your income and all those things is really, really important.
Absolutely. And I also, it's that, so you've got to make sure you find the right franchise for you. We talk a lot about that because it does vary based on so many different things. Yeah. And what's great about this survey is they really break it out into categories. I mean, they've got for women, top franchises for women, top franchises for veterans, top franchises for food, best multi. So if you think about it, you can pretty much slice and dice it each way as you're trying to make a decision about what type of franchise is for you.
So what were some of your favorite parts about the survey results that you read in this article?
Well, the one I liked the most was the Franchise Hall of Fame. And because that's one where, you can be, one time. So you can do like, one time you get in, that's great. But the Franchise Hall of Fame, it's set up and celebrates franchisees that have kind of demonstrated that long-term commitment to positive and rewarding experience for their franchisees. So to get into this, you have to be in the franchise top 200 at least 10 times. So that really shows commitment to excellence and commitment to franchisees. So I like that they celebrated that.
Yeah. And you want to talk about maybe the top couple things that they, on here, for example, they say the 5 things that they use to measure franchisee satisfaction, to your point, training and support, leadership, financial opportunity, franchise community, and overall satisfaction. So what were some of the companies that surprised you that were on the list? Were there any that
interesting? Yeah, I had a couple of, well, what I find fascinating is I always forget the number of franchises that aren't food. because I think so many times we think of franchising, we think of food.
Yes.
And out of the top 200, I didn't count the ones that aren't, but there's a very large number. And it's just fascinating. You know, it's a gold swim school, you know, things like, you know, automotive, you know, different types of like coaching companies. I had a list of, you know, cruise companies, fast signs. So what I love about it, it's really, that's why it's not one size fits all. And you can find something for you. And I also love it that they put in the amount of investment, because that's also going to vary for many of us based on what we can do, what we can afford.
Yeah. And, you know, I'd like to just give a shout out to Franchise Business Review. Make sure anybody who's out there and you're like, wow, you know, I'd really like to check that out. I want to know who's on that list. All you need to do is go to franchisebusinessreview.com and they'll have their top 200 list there. And as Karen just mentioned, there are filters. So if you're somebody who's looking to invest under 50,000, between 50 and 100, or over 200, whatever category you might be looking at, you know, investing in, I would certainly take a look and just see what they have to say. Again, a lot of this is super, super candid. I know I try to be very candid, so it helps not only the franchisees see that they're not alone in the way they feel, but also the franchisor to take it as some constructive criticism and look inside themselves to decide, is there things that we need to change, and what is it that we need to change? So
absolutely.
Well, very good, Karen. I think that's a great thing to have come out just before the show today. And I hope everybody will take a look again. And that is at franchisebusinessreview.com. And we look forward to having a great show today. We hope that you'll all jot some notes down as we go through the interview with Michael Ringel. And we'll be right back coming up after this. Or we won't. We'll come right now. Surprise, Michael.
Here we are.
So, Michael, you have been with us before. You know, I always introduce you as our favorite wealth strategist. But you do a lot more than just that. So tell us what it is that you do and how did you get in this space?
Sure. Well, I appreciate having me back. Our last conversation was a lot of fun, and share with you a little bit about my background. I'm a CPA. I'm also a certified exit planner. And prior to working in the financial services industry, in the 90s, I worked with a company called Let's Talk Business Network. And what we did was we built entrepreneurial support groups for business owners to come together and talk about the different issues and challenges in their business. You know, very similar to Vistage or a Tab. We did it in the 90s and we brought people together. And what we discovered was when you strip away the uniqueness of what we do for a living, the issues and challenges are all the same. Marketing, sales, PR, technology, hiring and firing. Right. So getting entrepreneurs together to learn from each other, best practices, is really the way people love to learn.
For sure.
And so, you hit on something very interesting in your last conversation, with Karen, is that, I discovered that most people, they don't go into business just for the money. The money is a strategic byproduct. Most people start their business or go into business or leave corporate America because they have some purpose, right? I talk to a lot of companies in the home health industry, and a lot of the people were nurses or respiratory therapists, people who want to give back. And by growing a business and doing it in the franchise model, right, the strategic byproduct is creating cash flow for them, their families, and the employees that work for them.
Right. So
our mission is to empower families to experience purpose, freedom, and abundance in their lives.
Wow.
And the way we accomplish it is by inspiring and coaching families on the truths of investing and design a plan that supports their purpose.
That's awesome. That's a big order.
Yeah.
As we delve into these questions, because I'm going to let Karen start us off, but I want to remind everybody, because this is a topic that many of you are probably interested in. We do have a call-in number, which is 323-580-5755. Occasionally, you'll see it run across the bottom of your screen if you happen to be watching. But again, it's 323-580-5755. If you have questions for Michael or some in general franchise questions that you'd like to ask that you feel are relevant. Go ahead, Karen.
Yeah.
No, I was just going to say, so when do you feel people truly need to begin the planning process?
Sure.
And then also even the exit planning?
Karen, that's a great question. Kristin, I think you brought it up before, in Stephen Covey's book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. I think it's the eighth part of, sharpening the saw, but then it's the end in mind, right? So most people know how to get into business. They buy a franchise, they have a system. So the second day in business is the day they should start thinking about how they're going to exit their business. And they may not exit for the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years. But what if you were exit ready? What if somehow you started planning and then somebody along the way came to you with the largest check you've probably ever seen in your life and says, I want to buy your business. Are you ready to exit? Last year, my colleague and I had 3 companies that were in that position. 2 of them sold for $30 million. Owners were exit ready. They knew exactly what they were doing with the money. They knew exactly how it was going to transpire, but they weren't looking for it, right?
Yeah.
They just, venture capitalists came along and said, we want this business. They saw the opportunity and they went for it. So for the last, I would say, 15, 20 years, we've been working with entrepreneurs and business owners, really focusing on their exit planning, because we all know with 100% certainty that you're going to leave your business someday, right? Either it's going to be on your terms, it's going to be on somebody else's terms, and most business owners haven't planned on it, and there's no dress rehearsal.
Right.
A lot of times you don't get a second shot at this. So how can we put a plan together to help you become exit ready? From the business point of view, we could talk about looking at the personal point of view as well, but we start focusing on, what's the purpose of your business? What are you looking to get out of your business? What's the value of your business? Right.
Well, that seems like, right now, now I will say, I think a benefit to franchising is that they tend to prepare franchisees to at least have a kind of a good sense of what the business is worth. But that can be a really intimidating question, you know? So how do you get to the bottom? You help entrepreneurs and franchise owners. Do you find that one is, they've got to be very different in how you deal with them, right?
Yes and no. It's interesting because most business owners don't get a valuation of their business, right? And the reason is that it's typically expensive.
Yep.
You have to hire an accounting firm to come in and disrupt 2 to 3 days of getting financial data. And as entrepreneurs, we go. We're working in the business, not on the business. Well, we use technology, right? Basically big data that's out there, very similar to if you wanted to value your home. Right? You go to Zillow.com, it uses big data, it gives you an approximate value of your home. Now, remember, something is worth what somebody's willing to pay for it.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
So, you go to Zillow and you go, well, my house is worth more, my house is worth less. But either way, it gives you an idea. Well, we have technology to do the same thing with 3 years tax returns, some financials, and a couple questions. We can create a 28-page report that says, here's the approximate value of your business today. Benchmark it against key performance indicators within your industry and with outside the industry. And then have conversation about it, because here's the thing we need to think about. How much money do you want to live on the rest of your life? How much cash flow do you need, right? To be able to live the lifestyle that you want to live? How much do you have on your personal balance sheet? And a lot of entrepreneurs don't realize that their business balance sheet, right, goes on their personal balance sheet, right? You own a business, it's an asset.
Yep.
Well, will the net proceeds of that business, when you take into consideration taxes, and taxes come into play if you decided to use your old 401k, right, to purchase the business, right? We need to figure out how to get out of that situation, because when you sell the business, all of that is going to be ordinary income when you take it out.
Yes.
Capital gains tax if you didn't use your old 401k from the corporate world to pay for the business.
Yep. That's actually a really good point. And I think that's where it's great that not only are you a wealth strategist, but you are a CPA, because people like me, I was tempted to do a 401k rollover,
Yeah.
but because of that very fact, my CPA said, you pay now or you pay later. And I said, I'd rather just pay now.
Yeah.
So we rolled it into a Roth, paid the tax,
Right.
to hopefully minimize the day that we decide to exit.
Yeah, absolutely. And then think about, will the net proceeds from the sale of the business, plus what's on your personal balance sheet, be able to produce the income that you're going to want to live on the rest of your life?
Right.
How is it invested? Do you have any guaranteed income? What does it look like? And if there's a gap between the two, well, then how do you add value to your business over the next 10, 15, 20 years so that you get the number that you can plug and play into the planning that says, okay, this number will allow me to live that lifestyle.
See, that's the key reason why you do it up front, right? So then you're not years later when you want to exit to say, whoops,
Right.
we didn't do that. And
Yeah.
it's too
We're going to work at Walmart part-time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Because I think
Yeah.
people don't think about that going in.
No, I mean, I can't tell you how many people, you work so hard in your business every day, and then turn around one day, and to you, because of the blood, sweat, and tears and the sweat equity you put into your business, a lot of entrepreneurs believe that their business is worth a lot more than somebody's willing to pay for it.
It's just a common thing, right? Because it's your baby. It's what you've been working on. Of course, wouldn't somebody want to pay that or want that? Yeah.
Yeah. So when you discover that it's not that way, then it's devastating, and you may have to change your lifestyle.
Yeah.
Like, for example, there's a company that I was working with that decided that they chose not to sell the business because the net proceeds would not allow them to live the lifestyle. And what they did was they brought in professional management, and they paid them handsomely and turned their business into basically an ATM. And the professional management will run the business forever.
Yep.
And they're just pulling out cash, spending an hour or two a week, maybe in the business.
Right.
And it's producing more income for them.
Well, that's interesting, because I have had that conversation with several people over the last few weeks. As people start to, on their terms, calling it aging out or wanting to retire. And, I thought, well, geez, as long as my business is making money, do I really want to get out? Right. I mean,
right.
And I think that's a great strategy. But let me ask you, so in doing that, and then again, beginning with the end in mind, when you set up your corporation, we talked a little bit about that pre-tax, your 401k money.
Right.
That really drives, or should drive, whether you're an S Corp, a C Corp, or an LLC. Should it not all kind of play in part of the same formula?
Absolutely. Well, when you're an LLC, you would declare how you're taxed, right?
Okay.
When you create the rollover, right, you have to be a C Corp.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and there are pros and cons to that, right? If you keep money in the business, if you retain earnings, you're taxed at the corporate rate, but when you take it out, you're taxed again, which brings it up to what you would have been taxed at the S Corp anyway. So there are ways, even if you have an S Corp now or an LLC that's taxed as an S Corp, it may be advantageous to create a C Corp management company to be able to move some of those retained earnings in there, because you may not need it for a while.
Interesting.
So that's one of the things that we're seeing a lot of companies looking into. The other thing most business owners don't know is that, when it comes to employee retention, employee benefits, they know what 401k is, right? They put it together most of the time because they want to retain their employees.
Yes.
But they don't use it effectively in order to minimize taxes. For example, you can add on top of a 401k, and what people typically do is they go to their payroll company, and the payroll company says, just put together the 401k for me and just manage it. But what if you have a very profitable year? Well, you can create a profit sharing plan on top of it and put more money away for you, the owners, than just the, $22,000 a year plus match.
Do you have to offer that to your employees too, or can you do it just as owners in that 401k?
So it's a great question. The eligible employees, right, the way the IRS works is that in order for you, the business owner, to get the benefit of putting away a lot more money, you have to give some to the employees.
Right.
You can't discriminate.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. Let's say you have a business that is producing a lot of income for the last few years, and it's going to continue to grow.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there are plans that you can combine with the 401k profit sharing called a cash balance plan. And a cash balance plan allows the business owners to put away a lot more money, 6 figures in a lot of cases, while only giving a little bit to the employees. We did a plan design with our actuaries for one of our franchisees, and what we discovered was that in this cash balance plan, both owners could put away an extra $200,000 a year each, and only have to give up $20,000 to the employees.
Wow.
Wow, that's amazing. And some people listening may be like, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe you want to give more to your employees. It's because of them." But what they don't realize is a lot of us, myself included, I gambled my entire 401k on this business. That is what opened and ran my business for the first several years. And so, yes, it sounds like you're being selfish, but really, I'm just trying to put myself back where I belong.
Right. And you deserve it. And you're playing within the rules of the IRS. Like, there's no gray. This is black or white. And what's really cool about it is that when you're in the 401k, the 3% or 4% match, that's the employee's money right away. If they leave, they take it.
Right.
In the profit sharing, which is discretionary each year, if you have a great year, you could add to it. If you don't have a good year, you don't have to add to it. The employee portion is on what is called a 6-year vesting schedule. So that they're not entitled to it right away. If they've been with you for 1 to 2 years, right? They're not entitled to anything if they leave.
Right.
And then it's 20, 40, 60, 80, 100. So if they're with you 6 years, they're entitled to it all. With the cash balance plan, they have to be with you for 3 years. It's called a cliff vest, meaning that after 3 years of employment, they're entitled to whatever you put aside for them.
Interesting.
Think about this. If you're getting 95% of the contribution, you put away 400, you have to put away 20 for the employees.
Yeah.
Your tax deduction at a 40%, is 80 grand.
Yeah.
No, I'm sorry, it's 160,000. You're giving away 20. Your net taxes are, 100, 120. It makes sense.
Yeah.
So what we do is we look at that. We look at the different ways to exit the business. We look at how do you retain employees? How do you put non-qualified plans together? And then be able to say, okay, here's what it looks like today. Here's how you add value to the business. Here's how you invest money based upon Nobel Prize winning academic strategies without speculating in gambling. Here's how you create a pension plan in the future, right? Because that's what a cash balance plan is, right? I personally believe that the biggest downfall of the retirement system in the United States was actually the invention of the 401k. Because it put the onus on you, the employer and employee, to manage your own money versus working for a big corporation and getting a pension for life.
Right.
Exactly.
Right. Agree.
Yeah. And that must have been designed by the corporations too, right?
Well, it was actually to minimize the amount that when I started my auditing career at Deloitte & Touche, I audited many pension plans. And I could not tell you, I couldn't believe how underfunded these were.
Wow.
So they know they have this potential future liability. They just don't have the money to pay it all today.
Yeah.
So they invented the 401k, the IRA. It's now up to us to do it. And that's why people go into federal jobs, civil service jobs, teaching positions.
Right.
It's true.
My daughter started as a 4th grade teacher in New York City, and I wanted her in that system because of the pension.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
that's
It is amazing. It is
Yeah.
amazing how much, right? And because I always get teased by that. I'm like, well, I don't have quite that. So that's why it's important as a franchisee
Yeah.
to make sure that we are thinking about all these different things and the different strategies to make sure that we're setting ourselves up to succeed, because we don't have that.
Yeah. And we can create it on our own.
That's right.
That's what entrepreneurs do. So that's what we teach and we coach and educate people on. And then we give them the choice. This says, here's where you are today. If you continue doing what you're doing, here's what life might look like financially. Here are some choices you have. If you implement the choices, here what life might look like. And then what we do is we then use the financial products in the marketplace to fulfill the strategy versus trying to sell stuff to people.
right.
Which my industry has been known for having a really bad rap for people just trying to sell stuff.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I like it. And what I like about your approach and how you're talking about this, it's refreshing because it's holistic, because you're talking about the financial, you're talking about someone's, you're tying it to them and their future. And the last piece is the employees. And you're tying it to like strategies with employee retention, because a lot of this, when you talk about exit planning, a lot of this then sets it up to, you got to find somebody to buy it. So the healthier it is, the healthier you are, you're going to be able to find I would think you'd be able to find a buyer faster.
Yeah. And the value of your business will increase if you have your key employees locked into certain golden handcuffs that upon the transition and sale of the business, they're incentivized to stay with the new owner. Right? The owner wants that because they want the continuity. And if you tie in, like in corporations, they use the golden handcuffs and define deferred compensation. You as the business owner could do that as well. And that just adds value to the overall business itself.
Absolutely.
Because we're talking about value, obviously brand plays into this quite largely. And, it's kind of my opinion that if you have a franchise brand, it's one that obviously people know about, they see it, they're aware in most cases. Do you find that franchise brands have been easier to exit than a mom and pop shop type thing, or not necessarily?
That's a great question. Not necessarily. A lot of it is very specific. It's specific on the competition in your area. It's specific on how what's the potential growth in your area. Now, yes, the name of the company and, the amount of money that you have to maybe contribute to the marketing fund and the amount of royalties that you have to play into it. And compared to independence, it adds value to it. But there's so many variables that go into play that it's tough to say.
Yeah.
I noticed that you work with franchisees and franchisors.
Yes.
And and by the way, I've been on both sides, franchisor, franchisee side. And, it's interesting because there is a little bit of if you want to call it friction many times. I mean, many times franchise associations are kind of formed because there's kind of some kind of dispute or, whatever. A lot of times it's that way. It's not necessarily positive. I mean, do you find that to be the sentiment of people you work with? And, what are your thoughts as far as working with the franchisor or franchisee, and what's in it for both to work with you? I mean, we know the franchisee, but what about the franchisor?
Yeah. So most of the people I work with actually come from the business association started by, like you mentioned, they started the business owners association because there was a problem, right? And everyone got together and they realized that, if they pool their resources, they could then fight the franchisor. And then once that issue is complete, they go, wow, you know what? We really like coming together to learn from each other. And for me, I found that working through, the business owner associations is more powerful because the franchisor, a lot of times they don't want to, they're concerned about liability. They're concerned about, if I introduce, Mike to all our franchisees and something happens, well, who are they going to go after?
Right.
So, but the other thing is that a lot of the franchisors want to see a smooth transition, right, from one business owner to another.
Sure.
And if we could help them in that process. So it depends on how progressive the franchisor is. But from my experience, where I can really make a difference is is speaking at the Business Owner Association about this topic, whether it's in their performance groups, whether it's like at one of the national conferences, and just sharing this information. Like I was in January, I was asked to speak at a mastermind group of about 15 entrepreneurs in Aruba. Now, imagine telling my wife, honey, I got to go to Aruba January for work.
For work.
And she said, I'll go with you.
Yeah.
Well, unfortunately, she had to work. And then I'm sitting on the beach and it was 7 degrees at home. And she said, you know what, honey, you could stay an extra couple days. And I realized that was like a test, right? That was like a test of our marriage. So I came
very
home.
sharp. Very sharp.
Yes, very, very.
And we actually, I asked them, how long do you want to talk for? And they said, well, you can have the whole morning session. So for 3 hours, we talked about this topic. Now, it wasn't me talking for 3 hours. It was interaction. It was conversation. It was sharing. We did worksheets. And at 2 hours and 50 minutes, we had 10 hours worth of material to continue with.
Wow.
And of the 15 business owners that were there, 9 of them became personal clients to help them with their planning.
I think that's so important, Michael. I mean, and obviously we always ask you this question. People listening, whether we have people who are looking to buy or people who are currently franchisees, and like you said, we have emerging brands too, that not every emerging brand makes it.
Right.
How's the best way for them to contact you and kind of strike up this conversation? Because it sounds like it can be very involved and it's obviously very individualized, right? Based on what your goals are.
Yeah, absolutely. My cell phone number, people can call me anytime, is 917-734-4748.
Okay.
They can send me an email. My email address is mringel@strategies4wealth.com, or through Facebook. I'm on there, through your site. They could just leave a DM. More than happy to have a conversation with anybody about what's going on in their world when it comes to their business, entrepreneurship. Sure. Even sharing just resources and books are really important because we can use those as tools to help people who are not ready today.
Well, I almost feel like that's exactly where I was going to go. People who are thinking and they call and say, hey, Kristin, I want to buy a franchise. Can you help me? I almost feel like this is one of the due diligence steps that we have to have people take, at least make the phone call so you can ask the questions and they can start planting those seeds to know, okay, if I'm going to invest $200,000 or $50,000, what's my plan to make that back and then some, so I'm okay when I retire?
Absolutely. Yeah. And there's no cost to have a conversation, right? We can schedule a time to meet, to talk. I love learning about entrepreneurs and business owners, especially since we started doing this as far as the support community for entrepreneurs. Thank you for inviting me on the show. I love talking about it because there's nothing better than seeing somebody realize their life's work.
Yeah.
Again, it's not just about the money; it's about the purpose.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I think that more and more people would feel more comfortable going into business, whether again is, individualized or whether it be a franchise, if they had a very clear vision. I know that's something I sort of had, right? But not down to the details, where now as I age, I'm like, whoa, I better get it together.
and don't you think the franchisees, that the ones that I worked with, the ones that did have the plan, that had kind of a grasp on it and that had the exit plan going in, I felt as if they weren't as, if you want to call it, fearful, that they were much more confident. And I think their decisions were more of strategic decisions instead of just kind of the moment to moment. So there's a calmness there.
Well, then they wind up like Ray, traveling all over the country.
I know.
Right?
Yeah, we all want to be like Ray.
He's living the high life, checks in now and then, but who knows where he pops up next. I mean, really, and that's fantastic. Michael, I just want to thank you again for coming on, because I really think this is something that people should not be afraid of. It's got to be one of those preparatory steps before you make the leap into business ownership. And we're really glad to have you as part of our group. So I just want to say thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate your time. It's always a pleasure.
Great
Yes,
talking
and
with you.
we'll have all your contact information on our website. So if anybody's interested, don't hesitate to go to pillarsoffranchising.com and you can look up Mike's name and you'll find him there. And we're going to go to break, but I want to remind you, we do have a call-in number today of 323-580-5755. We look forward to hearing from you, and we'll be right back after this.
Hey, franchise owners. How's your local marketing? Do you feel like you could use some help keeping up with your social media posts and comments and reviews? Do you wonder if you could be doing more to attract local customers? Are you able to identify new move-ins to your local area? At Westvine, we help franchisees like you reach more local customers through digital marketing. With daily monitoring, creative content, and ad placement, and customer data intelligence, we'll get your business in front of the people who want your products or services. We also work with franchisors who need an agency to handle the digital marketing for all of their locations. If you're ready to reach more local customers, give us a call at 805-265-5440 or visit us at westvine.com. That's 805-265-5440 or westvine.com.
I have to give a huge shout out to Westvine because if any of you out there have owned a small business or are currently in the throes of it, oh my gosh, the local marketing requirements in terms of just keeping up with social media is mind-numbing. Jerry, do you feel my pain?
I feel your pain. One of my businesses does almost all of their client recruitment through social media platforms now. So
Yeah.
if you don't do it, you need to be doing it. And if you start doing it, you're only going to keep growing in that segment because it continues to move more and more that way, especially as our population gets younger and younger. Not like me.
Or me. But hey, welcome back. Oh my gosh. I feel like every time I see you, you've changed a little. We wait so long.
Well, I'm older and fatter. Is that what you're speaking of?
I was going to say you look a little more toned, but if you want to go the opposite way, that's okay. I mean, I wasn't going to go there, but.
I appreciate that. Fred is on the. Did you see he tried to replace Karen with Ray in the middle of your segment?
Oh, I saw that.
That was disappointing to all of us watching. Nothing against you, Ray, but we didn't want to trade you and Karen. Okay.
I think he was just making sure that Ray was paying attention.
I got it. Well,
Yeah.
We have a series now that we're going to start today.
Yep. Sure.
Yeah, I just got off. I served on a panel with some really smart people. They put me on there for eye candy, I think. So I was in amongst a group of really smart people talking about the new joint employer rule that has been rolled out. And so we're going to do 3 weeks. Actually, it's over 4 weeks, but we're going to do 3 segments on it so that we can try and bring people up to speed with today's history of what has gone on. And then week's Thanksgiving. So that'll be a whole other thing. And then in 2 weeks, we're going to do some comparisons of the past and the present so that everybody gets a good feel for why there's concern about it. And then in 3 weeks, we're going to talk about what if this actually happens. What does that look like as a franchisor and a franchisee?
That's right. The big if that we're talking about is joint employership, correct?
Joint employer. And this is, let's start the history lesson. This has been going on for 15 years or more. It started primarily because of the slow but inevitable death of unions and their lack of being able to recruit new members. And now I want to, before I get hate mail, I want to let everybody know I was a member of a union for a couple of years. My father was a union member and worked on the management team of a union for many years. Unions had their place. In some cases, they still have their place, but it's not our fault. You can't recruit people. And so don't screw up the franchise model in order to fix a problem you've got. So anyhow, that's where it started. And then they got their handmaidens in Washington, D.C. to carry the water. So this has been going on for 12 to 15 years. It has been through Congress 4 or 5 times and got voted down every time.
Mm-hmm.
Not once or twice, every time. And then, you know, in 2015, excuse me, during the Obama administration, the NLRB came out with a rule that changed what had been the precedent for joint employer designations over 40 years.
So
40 years.
Their definition of what defines joint employership is what really sparked a lot of this.
That's exactly right.
Okay.
Because what it does is it literally puts the onus on a franchisor to be responsible for the franchisee's employees. So in other words, a union can't organize 7 employees in one of my locations. They can, but it's difficult because there's thousands of them, of those locations. But if they were able to get some way put in place to put the onus on a corporate franchisor where they're held accountable for 40,000 employees, it becomes much easier to, you know, implement some sort of an organizational type thing. So that's kind of that's the baseline of the history on this thing. But it has gone back and forth. It's been shot down many times. It is rearing its ugly head again right now. And the NLRB, literally in this case, in the last 3 changes. So in 2015, when it got changed, there was a change to the makeup of the NLRB management team. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then under President Trump, the management team changed back. And now under President Biden, it's changed back again. So literally it is following the changes to administrations right now as to what's going to be going on. And I got to tell you, many franchisees aren't paying attention to it right now, but franchisors have. Okay.
Hallelujah.
So yeah, in 2015, when this thing actually took on some momentum under the then change to the NLRB rule, many franchisees saw subtle changes in the relationship between the franchisee and the franchisor. In other words, franchisors were offering less employee-facing support. So in other words, when it comes to some of the training things that were going on, those started being pulled back to some extent. Not en masse, not wholeheartedly, just the things that were maybe a little bit more prevalent to a joint employer ruling, they pulled those back. What ended up happening for franchisees is they noticed the loss of some of those. So most of them had to, if they had any size, if they're a franchisee with multiple units, they implemented their own local training to make up for some of the things they lost. But if you are a franchisee with 1 or 2 units, you likely won't have the wherewithal to put a training program in place of what you were getting before. Now, it's not just training. There's a multitude of things that impact the relationship that could cause a court to judge you to be part of a joint employer relationship. One of the things I brought up on the call today, a franchisor can do everything they can to insulate themselves from being judged. But let's take, for example, new technology.
Okay.
A franchisor rolls out new technology. As soon as they're comfortable with it in-house, they look for alpha and beta testers out in the ranks.
Right.
So they'll ask for volunteers, franchisee volunteers to do that. When that technology, let's use POS as an example. When that new POS technology hits, who are the ones that interact with POS more than anybody else up and down the system? Your employees.
Yep.
So since the franchisees don't know anything about the new POS system yet, that entails corporate employees training your staff on how to be an alpha and beta tester with new technology.
Yeah. But
I can't think of anything that's closer than that.
Yeah. I mean, all of this, and I'm glad that we're doing a bit of a history lesson because, you know, my fear is that people are going to be afraid to buy a franchise. But that should be the case. But with so much uncertainty, it's like, who wants to buy in the stock market when things are all topsy-turvy? Some do because they buy low, sell high. They've got that game down. But I mean, I tend to shy away when there are a lot of things that I don't understand, and when that's the case, I just stay away from it.
Well, I do. We saw a little bit of that in 2015 to 2017, where there was a lessening of the interest in franchises. So we could see that again, but there are so many variables here. Choosing to not become a franchisee for this one reason is probably not the greatest decision if you really want. Back to Michael's thing, developing wealth and even being able to pass it along to your family and things like that. That's all part of the franchise model by many times over what normal small businesses do. So, deciding not to do it is probably not the right thing, because franchisors and franchisees are going to learn how to navigate this system to ensure that they don't get called out on joint employer. The other thing is, this thing's got a long way to go before it actually, it's supposed to take effect, I believe, the 26th of December. But there is already one massive lawsuit that's been filed against it. There is a huge uprising in Congress that's bipartisan across the aisle. One of the few things we can all agree on right now, it seems like, in Washington, D.C. But there are people on both sides of the aisle that love small business and franchising and so on. So they're working together to, basically tell committees that they don't have the right to make these rules, these laws that are really congressional based. So I would not, I would say, buyer beware. I think looking at systems that have a little less interaction back and forth, where even we've talked before about looking for units that take less labor, because that's just a given in the world we live in today. Well, with less labor, there's less opportunity for a joint employer ruling. So, there's lots of ways to look at being a franchisee without giving up on the dream just because of this one issue.
Yeah. Okay. So certainly a closer look at what type of model that you choose. Are you also suggesting, Jerry, that that you don't necessarily want a franchisor that has such complicated systems that they need to be involved in the local franchises to help train and things of that nature? Or
well, I think that boat sailed already. I think literally all franchisors are trying to do everything they can to maintain that insulating buffer on the employee side. So I don't want to suggest anything related to that, because I think, we adapt, we move forward, we adjust, and things are going to be fine with that. But back to the technology thing, there's simply not a great way to roll that out and ensure that you've got a system that'll work across a large platform unless you put it out in the field and have people actually use it in day-to-day interactions, checking clients in and out, those kinds of things. So that is, one of the suggestions on some of these things is to have more third parties in the middle. Well, yes, but it's going to add a lot more cost to rolling things out, which franchisees pay. After franchisors pay, franchisees pay. And then, of course, that cost gets rolled along to consumers. So frankly, consumers shouldn't like any of this stuff either, because ultimately they're going to pay for it.
Yeah. Well, that's a good thing to make sure we share with everybody who's voting. But Jerry, so one thing I want to have you tell our listeners, because at the end of the day, everybody has to take some personal ownership over this issue and get involved. What is a great site, or where would you recommend that people go to learn more about what is going on and who they can talk to in kind of I'm one of those like books for the dummies, keep it simple, stupid. Where do I get not the legal jargon, but the tell it straight? How's it going to impact me?
Well, the International Franchise Association, IFA, has a website that's really powerful, and they've got a tremendous library on this, as well as videotapes. That's how old I am. Videos made of training on how to identify this and protect yourself and so on. In fact, as I said, I served as a member of a panel today on a nationwide group that presented on this to, 400 to 600 people across the country. So There's a lot of information there. That's one of the first places I would go to try and sort through this. But again, this is not a reason not to get into franchising. Just understand that it's like anything else, whether it's regulations or taxation or any of the other things that we have to face as business owners. Just one more thing we've got to be aware of and be prepared for. If you're a prospective franchisee, consider the labor side of things, not just because of joint employer, but because labor's tough now and may get tougher. So look for things that take a little less labor, or what I like to look for right now, things that have taken a fair amount of labor, but are now becoming so mechanized, so industrialized that they've figured out ways to use AI and computers and software and all of those kinds of things to gradually squeeze down the amount of labor that it takes to run. So I understand in Fort Worth, there's a McDonald's that doesn't have a human being in it. I'm going to drive to Fort Worth just to buy a burger.
Yeah, I think I want to go with you to that. That's interesting.
So anyhow, there will be a lot more information in 2 weeks and 3 weeks. Wait a minute. That's right. Yeah, 2 weeks and 3 weeks on this. Next week is Thanksgiving, and we're going to let you guys know all about what we're thankful for in franchising.
Sounds great, Jerry. Thank you so much. We can't wait to hear what else you got there, and hopefully we'll get some information out, whether it's on our blog via videos or your own personal penmanship. We'll look forward to that.
Sounds great. Thanks, Kristin.
Thank you so much, Jerry.
50 graduates resulting in 7 new franchisees owning 8 franchise brands, more than a dozen skilled graduates who are employees of franchise companies, all of them having earned a concentration in franchising exclusively granted by the Titus Center at Palm Beach Atlantic University, plus more than 80 franchise professionals on our advisory board. The Titus Center for Franchising is on fire in West Palm Beach, Florida. What do you need to join us? My students want to hear from you. They may even want to buy your franchise or work for your company. TitusCenter.com.
And we'd like to thank you all for joining us on the show today. Certainly, if you're thinking about getting into franchising or any kind of business, please be sure to take some notes on some of the things that Mike Ringel shared with us today. I think he's got a wealth of information that would help everybody in that situation. A big shout out again to Jerry Akers, who's out there helping us fight the joint employership, along with the IFA president, Matt Holler. We certainly appreciate everything that those folks do to help protect the franchising model. Thank you to our resident experts and Million Dollar mentors, Ray Pillar, Karen Kimsey-Sward, Jerry Akers. My name is Kristin Selmeczy. I am your 4th Million Dollar mentor. And be sure to tune in next week at pillarsoffranchising.com or wherever you get your podcast, 4 p.m. Central Standard Time, for yet another episode of Pillars of Franchising. We'd like to wish you all a happy holiday Thanksgiving week and season. And we look forward to seeing you right here again next week. Thank you to our producer, Fred McMurray. He gets really mad if I forget him. So we'll see you all next week. Have a wonderful day. And remember, when you're in franchising or getting into it, success starts here at pillarsoffranchising.com. Have a great week.